In that case, we'll start. Okay, so I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting, Wednesday the 24th of February, Cabinet meeting. In accordance with the Coronavirus Regulations 2020, this meeting is being held live virtually to facilitate attendance and enable the consideration of important matters during the current COVID-19 situation. The meeting will therefore operate differently in that members of the Cabinet joining in remotely are still able to contribute and vote on any matter. I would ask all attendees tuning in to mute their microphones unless they have been invited to speak. If anyone wishes to speak, please use the hand up icon or send a message using the message icon indicating your wish to speak, and I will invite you to turn on your microphone at the appropriate point. When you are finished speaking, please remember to turn off your microphone again. Following questions and a debate, in order to make a decision on the item, I will ask the Chief Executive to ask Cabinet members whether they are for, against the proposal, or if they wish to abstain. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed via the Council website and will also be available to view by members of the public and the press who are allowed by law to film, audio record, take photographs, blog or tweet at this meeting. I will now ask all Cabinet members and scrutiny members present to introduce themselves, and I will start with myself. I'm Councillor Maria Crompton and I'm Deputy Leader of the Council. Councillor Ali?
Yes, Councillor Ali, Cabinet Member for Resources and Core Services. Councillor
Alcock?
Councillor Keith Alcock, Cabinet Member for Homes.
You're very quiet, Councillor Alcock.
Let's move a bit closer. Can you hear me now?
That's much better.
Councillor Keith Alcock, Cabinet Member for Homes.
Thank you. Councillor Millard?
Councillor Danny Millard, I'm the Cabinet Member for Inclusive Economic Growth.
Lovely. Councillor Padder?
Councillor Iqbal Padder, Cabinet Member for Community Engagement and Equality.
Councillor Shaheen?
Councillor Farah Shaheen, Cabinet Member for Living Healthy Lives.
Councillor Singh?
Councillor Rajbir Singh, Cabinet Member for Skills and Employment.
Councillor Taylor?
Good afternoon, Councillor Jackie Taylor, Cabinet Member for Sustainable Transport.
Councillor Underhill.
Councillor Joyce Underhill, Cabinet Member for Best Start in Life.
Thank you. And the scrutiny chairs, Councillor Luke Giles.
Councillor Luke Giles, Chair of Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Board.
Councillor Elaine Giles.
Councillor Elaine Giles, Chair of Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Board.
Thank you. Councillor Rollins.
Councillor Laura Rollins, Chair of Economy Skills, Transport and Environment Scrutiny Board.
Thank you, Councillor Rollins. We'll now move on to the agenda. Do we have any apologies for absence? Suki, can you confirm apologies?
Yes, Chair, we've had 2 apologies, one from Councillor Moore and one from Councillor Priest.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll move on. Members to declare an interest. Do any members have any interest to declare? No, nothing's coming up. Okay, the minutes of the last meeting held on the 10th of January 2021 are presented. I move them as a correct record. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ali, can you second that,
the minutes? Yeah, second the minutes.
Okay, are they approved?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely.
Aye.
Agenda item 4, additional items of business. As far as I'm aware, we have no additional items of business to consider today. So we will now move on to agenda item 5, which is Council Finances 21-22 and 23-24. Can I ask Councillor Ali to present that report, please?
Thank you very much. On the 10th of February, I presented the Provisional Settlement Report to Cabinet for approval. I am now able to present the full final budget report based on the final local government final settlement. I'm pleased to say that there were no changes between the provisional and final settlement, and therefore the financial position for the council remains the same as reported on the 10th of February. There is a 13.8 million shortfall for 21-22, which has been covered from one-off balances and COVID emergency funding, and savings plans are now being considered to address the shortfall in subsequent years. The report contains a number of appendices which Cabinet are recommended to refer to full council for approval. These include the medium-term financial strategy, capital strategy and treasury management strategy. The main one I'd like to draw your attention to is Appendix D, which sets out the Section 151 Officer's Opinion and the adequacy of the reserves. It is estimated that our free balance provisions will remain stable at the end of 2020-2021 and therefore is still within the recommended limits. This is a positive position, especially given the impact of COVID-19. Cabinet are recommended to approve all appendices for presentation at full council on the 2nd of March. There are also 2 additional recommendations for Cabinet, which are to approve the contract sum of £68 million for Sandwell Children's Trust for 21-22 and to approve the freezing of fees and charges across the council for 21-22 in order to acknowledge the impact of COVID on our local community. I move that the Cabinet approve the report and appendices be presented to full council on the 2nd of March. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. The report was considered by the Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Board on the 18th of February. Can I ask the Chair of the Board to provide any feedback from the scrutiny meeting? Councillor Luke Giles, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, obviously scrutiny had quite a good in-depth conversation around this, and Councillor Ali come and obviously answered the questions and the concerns that we got. Obviously, members noted the increase that residents, I mean, feedback at the moment, they're not happy, and we need to give them value for money and obviously explain the reasons why we're putting it up, and obviously mainly to obviously tell the residents what we're offering, and obviously the reasons why frontline services are being altered at the moment, but as soon as COVID has kind of moved away a little bit, that frontline services will be back and we'll get our bins collected every week, litter picking, and that it's good value for money is the biggest thing, and just basically inform the residents on the reasons why. But thank you for Councillor Ali for attending the Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Board, and that's it, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ali. Did you want to add anything in there?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Councillor Giles and his colleagues for the work they're doing on budget scrutiny in relation to the budget. And again, thanks for the lively discussion. And I take on board the feedback. And I think Councillor Giles made a very good point at the budget scrutiny. I think we have to be more concise with our messaging in relation to why we're making the increase in council tax. Obviously, as I said at the budget, this is not a decision I've taken lightly. It is nationally, councils have been underfunded, and as a result, we are feeling the impact still. But I urge everybody, in relation to the bin issue, we have met with Circle this morning, and we do have a plan. And obviously, the Deputy Leader and the Chief Executive were at that meeting. So bear with us, we do have a plan. We're hoping that services will start resuming back to normal as soon as possible. But thank you once again to Councillor Giles and his team.
Thank you, Councillor Giles, and thank you, Councillor Ali. Yes, it is very difficult times, and we, as Councillor Ali said, we did have a meeting with the provider this morning, and we believe that we've come to some resolution. I've got a hand up there from Councillor Singh. You want to add something, Councillor Singh?
Thank you, Leader. I just want to ask a quick question to Councillor Ali. I mean, yes, I mean, we have explained the reasons why we're putting this cost higher than what it was. But would you be able to give us a regional context about, how are we in terms of how this has impacted our neighbours regionally and nationally?
Yeah, Leader, for you.
Yes, you carry on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your question, Councillor Singh. In relation to regionally, so one thing I'm very proud to say is that, as you will recall from Cabinet a few weeks ago, we are still the only council in the Midlands still offering 100% council tax reduction scheme. And I know that news has come out about Birmingham Council providing residents a discount in council tax, but we don't have to provide a discount. We don't charge any council tax to those people who are eligible for that in the first place. And I'm very proud of that. But also, secondly, in relation to the council tax increase, this is the lowest council tax increase across all the West Midlands. And it hasn't been easy. And I thank all the officers for the incredible work they've been doing for allowing us to go this far. In answer to Councillor Singh's question, Sandwell Council's council tax rise is the lowest across all councils in the West Midlands. And obviously we'll be making tough decisions going forward, but we wanted to show the people that we're on their side, we understand their pain, and that we stand in solidarity with them during this period. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you both. And I add that to myself. We had some really difficult discussions about this, and we could have put in the same council tax upgrade that all the others have done across the West Midlands, but we chose to think about how our residents may well be struggling, and we put in the lowest council tax upturn that we could manage to get away with. So I hope that residents will appreciate that it's very difficult times, and we will continue to think of them and put them first as much as we possibly can. I'll now move on to the vote. Can the Chief Executive please call on each member to ask them to confirm the vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Alcott, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Padda, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain?
For.
Votes carried, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much for that, and that is approved by the council. We'll now move on to agenda item 6, which is the corporate plan 2020-2025 and the budget. I will ask Councillor Ali to present that report also, please.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. So this report is about the corporate plan, the key achievements we have made towards delivering it over the last year, and our intention to refresh the plan in the context of the pandemic. Included, as you say, is part of the budget for 21-22. The corporate plan, Big Plans for a Great Place, sets out our plan for the council over the next 5 years. The plan was adopted in March last year, and a lot has been happening since then. The situation, of course, has transformed by the COVID pandemic, and the council responded to this crisis in an active programme we have called the Reset Recovery. At the same time, we impressively responded to the pandemic. We have continued to deliver against the strategic outcomes of the corporate plan. This report sets out our key achievements over the last year. I am particularly proud of how we've responded effectively to the emergency of the pandemic as one council, establishing our business community rapidly and calmly. We have shown how we can mobilise flexibly and quickly, a true one council, one team response, where departments have been amazing and relevant in the job we've needed them to do. This goes for how we have worked with our partners too. We have pulled together as a whole place to support the people of Sandwell. Organisational boundaries between us have been invisible. At the same time, we have continued services delivery where it is possible. I am proud of our overall achievement and our frontline services supporting our communities in times of crisis. To do this, we have had to shift our services to a digital platform where possible, and this has been outstanding and very impressive. And we have also continued to deliver against our strategic outcomes in the corporate plan in many impressive ways. Given the distractions that the pandemic has posed, I hope you will join me in extending our thanks to all staff during what has been a very challenging year. From the offset, we invested considerable efforts to learn about the impact of the pandemic and what we needed to do to address it. The Cabinet received an impact assessment report in September. Our COVID impact report is in phase 1 and 2 of the Reset and Recovery programme, has highlighted how much our borough and our organisation has been affected by the pandemic. We must now ensure that the strategic framework reflects the massive changes that happened over the last year and reset our priorities accordingly. We're now in the process of analysing how the plan needs to change to become fit for the new reality. A robust engagement plan is in place to ensure that the refreshed corporate plan reflects the views of members, partners, stakeholders, but most importantly, the community. This engagement will include sessions with members covering service financial planning. In other words, how we meet financial pressures whilst achieving our strategic outcomes. The Cabinet has received a report on the provisional local settlement and has asked to approve the net revenue target budgets for services. Services have developed these budgets in line with the local government financial settlement set out in the budget paper. Further details on the service budget are contained in the appendices and will go forward for part of the council finances that will be considered by full council in due course. There will be some difficult finance decisions to make in the coming months and to make sure those savings can be achieved by March 2020. At the same time as delivering against our corporate plan objectives. This report was considered by by the Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Board on the 18th of February, following Cabinet last week. Members of the board were keen that the refresh of the corporate plan takes what residents most value into account, and that we learn lessons from the pandemic to shape service delivery going forward. The report will now go forward to full council on the 2nd of March.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. The report was considered by the Budget Corporate Scrutiny Management Board on the 18th of February. Can I ask the Chair of the board to provide any feedback from scrutiny meeting, please, Councillor Giles?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, obviously, Councillor Ali touched on our responses, but one thing that come out of the meeting was that, you know, I mean, the committee, the board wants to thank every member of staff from the top to the bottom. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that residents don't see, and obviously people don't get the credit for that. So we have to be mindful that everybody on that council, from the top to the bottom, all pulled together and, you know, I mean, got the council through this pandemic. And there's no book written how to deal with a pandemic, but I think, you know, the council have done an absolutely sterling job, and a credit to us all. And thank you very much from the chief exec down to the litter pickers. Absolute fantastic response. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Giles. I'm immensely proud of everyone that works for the council. They've all done a sterling job. The council is like a big machine, and every cog has to work, and every cog has worked, and it's been under pressure for a very long time now. But they've all come out and they have done their utmost to look after the residents of Sandwell as best they possibly can. And as I say, I'm proud of every one of them. With that, I will now move to the vote. Can the Chief Executive please call on each member to ask and confirm their vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Padda, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain? Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain?
For.
Thank you. That's carried, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. That is approved. So we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the Q3 Budget Monitoring 2021. And I'll go again to Councillor Ali, please.
Yeah, definitely the end of the financial year is looming. This report sets out the 2020-21 financial position for the council at the end of December 2020. Across directorates, there is a projected year-end underspend of 8.4 million, including public health and central items. The forecast position is an underspend of 10.5 million. The use of 14.7 million of reserves and one-off reserves is included within the position. And when this is taken into account, the overall projection is a small overspend of £200,000. There is a planned use of reserves, and therefore this does not affect the council's free balances positions. The council is also projecting to use 15.8 of COVID emergency grant funding within these projections. The remaining grant funding will be used to offset business rate and council tax losses and other commercial income. The report appendices show the position for each director and explains the reason for the variances against budget. The main areas of budget pressures continue to be Send Transport, which is forecast to overspend by approximately 3.5 million, Property Maintenance Account, which is forecast to overspend by 1.9 million, and Legal Services, which is forecast to overspend by 1 million. The main area of underspend is within Adult Social Care, which is forecast to underspend by 9.9 million, mainly as a result of the impact of COVID-19 and occupancy in care homes. The service is requesting that £2 million of this underspend is carried forward to address further cost pressures. The remaining can be added back to the council's reserves. Cabinet is recommended to note the financial position and to also approve the following: budget variance above £250,000, which are set out in recommendation 3, an allocation of £632,000 to Sandwell Children's Trust from the COVID emergency funding, a carry forward of £2 million for the adult social care into 21-22, the creation of an earmark reserve of £150,000 to enable COVID safe elections to be facilitated, a revenue contribution to capital of £600,000 from SC Children's SCT earmark reserves to fund the pressure of ICT equipment. Cabinet also recommended to note the use of land regeneration fund as set out in recommendation 8. I recommend the full report to Cabinet for approval.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. Have we got any questions? No, no hands. In that case, I will move to the vote. Can the Chief Executive now call the vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Padda, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain. Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
Can I just confirm, Chair? Councillor Shaheen, I saw your lips move to say for, but I didn't hear anything. Would you mind just confirming the vote, please?
For.
Thank you.
Better.
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you, and that report is approved. We now move on to agenda item 8, adoption of revised Black Country tenancy strategy. Can I ask Councillor Alcock to present that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Crompton. The 2011 Localism Act requires local authorities to produce a tenancy strategy that sets out how housing providers operating in the area should administrate fixed-term tenancies and affordable rents. Sandwell, in conjunction with its neighbouring Black Country authorities, has concluded review of the current strategy, which first took effect on the 15th of January 2013, which is attached as an appendix to this report. With regard to fixed tenancies, the revised strategy proposes any review that takes place at least 9 months prior to a fixed term tenancy ending instead of the current 6. Tenants will be notified of the review of outcome at least 6 months instead of the current 3 before the fixed term tenancy ends. With regard to administration of affordable rents, the review has concluded that the following key amendments should be made. As a local authority, we expect a proportion of new build developments to be social housing rent, where they are not funded through the affordable housing grant. Where affordability is an issue, we expect the housing provider to support the tenant to enable them, where possible, to access and sustain their tenancy rather than exclude them. Not to support the converting from social rent to affordable rent unless there is a direct link to funding of additional affordable or social homes within the region. I therefore move the report as detailed in the documentation.
Okay. Have we got any questions, anyone? I can't see any hands going up, so shall we move to the vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Padda, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
Thank you. That's carried, Chair.
Okay, thank you, and that report is approved. We'll move on to agenda item 9, which is flooring and associated works, and that's again Councillor Alcock.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Crompton. This report seeks to approve to award the contract for undertaking flooring and associated works to Sandwell MBC Properties to Hill Interior Contracts Limited. The contract is to provide specialist flooring such as wet rooms, carpets and carpet tiles where works are required. The current contract is serviced by Hill Contracts Limited and has been in place since 2018. The new contract is for 4 years, which will run from the 1st of March to the 28th of February 2025, and the budget over the 4 years is £1.1 million or £275,000 per annum. Hill Interior Contracts Limited are based in Helzowen, and as part of their tender return, they have stated that they will support local community with regards to using local suppliers and stockists. They will also have students as part of their work experience scheme. I recommend this report to Cabinet.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay, can't see any hands going up, so can we move to the vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain. For. Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Padder, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
That's carried, Chair.
Okay, thank you, and that report is approved. We move on to agenda item 10, stabilisation of 2 disused mine shafts and shallow mine workings at land off King Street, Winsbury, Sandwell. Can I ask Councillor Millard to present that report, please?
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, this report relates to the redevelopment of the vacant site at King Street in Winsbury. It was proposed to bring the site forward for housing and a new health centre, and this was approved at Cabinet on the 14th of October 2020. This specific part of the project relates to appointing contractors to carry out mine stabilisation works, and it's essential on 2 levels. Firstly, to ensure the long-term structural integrity of the proposed development, but also to ensure that no one's put at risk by using the site. We don't want to make sure that everyone is secure and safe. A procurement and tendering exercise was completed in October 2020, but only 1 tender was returned. So then we did a re-tender exercise in November 2020, but again, only 1 tender was returned. The low number of tenders is due to the specialism of the work, and there's only a limited number of UK contractors available. The development programme for the project is such that if we re-tendered it again, it would cause a knock-on effect and delay the proposed completion of the development. And it's probably unlikely that we would receive any additional tenders on top of that. So therefore, I recommend the report's approved in line with all the recommendations. And I move the report. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Millard. Do we have any questions, anyone? No hands going up. In that case, we'll move to the vote. Chief Executive, can we move to the vote, please?
Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain. Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Padder, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you. That report is approved. We move on to agenda item 11, extension of grant for the provision of community-based support to victims of domestic abuse and sexual violence. Can I ask Councillor Shaheen to present that report, please?
Yeah, hi, thank you, Deputy Leader. Cabinet are asked today to approve an extension to the grant to Black Country Women's Aid. Sandwell Council has grant-aided Black Country Women's Aid for many years to provide specialist community-based support to victims of domestic abuse and sexual violence and their families. The support which victims receive from Black Country Women's Aid is vital, helping to reduce re-victimisation, preventing serious harm and homicide, and helping victims to cope and recover. Domestic abuse and sexual violence are significant issues for Sandwell, and Mayrose Lappin, the Domestic Abuse Team Manager, will provide further details in a short presentation to Cabinet today. The recommendations in the report will assist the Council in helping meet the needs of local victims and will assist Council in work to respond to the forthcoming requirements of the Domestic Abuse Bill currently going through Parliament. It is therefore important that Cabinet approves the recommendations in the report today and continues to grant aid to sustain this valuable provision for victims. The report recommends the Cabinet approve an extension for the grant to Black Country Women's Aid for the provision of community-based support to victims of domestic abuse and sexual violence over the next 3 years from the 1st of April 2021 for a value of £287,268 per annum. It will also ask Cabinet to grant delegated authorities to the Director to extend the grant after the current extension period, subject to satisfactory monitoring and performance criteria. And with this, I'll hand over to Mayor Rose Lappin. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen. I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully you'll see a presentation come up. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm Mary Rose Lappin, the Domestic Abuse Team Manager at Sandwell Council. And I'm just going to give you a short presentation on the issues of domestic abuse and sexual violence in Sandwell. And as Councillor Shaheen has said, these are significant issues for us in Sandwell. And they're also significant issues for us regionally and nationally as well. So Sandwell isn't sort of out of line with what's happening in other areas. On the domestic abuse and sexual violence were significant issues before the pandemic, and as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, the pandemic and the restrictions of the pandemic has really shone a light on some of the difficulties that victims and survivors face. And certainly since April last year up till December of this year, April to December last year, we've seen a 30% increase in domestic abuse crimes and non-crimes, those incidents that are reported to the police. And prior to the pandemic, we had seen year-on-year increases in reporting already, but there's been significant increases recently. And as the slide says, there was 553 high-risk domestic abuse cases heard at MARAC during the period. MARAC, for those of you who may not be aware, MARAC stands for a Multi-Agency Risk Assessment Conference, and that is a multi-agency meeting that happens fortnightly in Sandwell, where all of the main organisations, the various parts of the council, police, Women's Aid, probation, various parts of health and other organisations meet together to consider those high-risk domestic abuse cases and put safety plans in place and ensure that there's actions, multi-agency actions to support victims and their families. And again, we've seen in the last 9 months higher number of cases coming to MARC, 10% higher than the same period last year. Similarly, reports of rape and sexual violence to the police have increased by 30%. Again, with all of these figures, both domestic abuse and sexual violence, the true figure is likely to be much higher because these issues are very much underreported. So even though we've seen phenomenal increases in reporting, not just to police, but to our children's services and to Women's Aid, the true figures are likely to be much higher because often victims can be reluctant to seek help. And of course, during the pandemic, seeking help has been much more difficult for victims because of lockdown and the requirements for us all to remain at home. But victims are able to leave their homes during the pandemic to seek help, and we have been promoting those messages, and victims have still been coming forward for help. There's also been 12 domestic homicides in Sandwell since April 2011, and that date was when we were required by statute to undertake domestic homicide reviews where victims have died due to domestic abuse. So as I said, there's There's been 12 of those cases. There's been 9 reviews completed that have been published on the council's website, and we're currently reviewing 3 recent cases. I could go into a lot more detail in terms of the data, but just very briefly, the majority of victims or survivors are women, though men, of course, can be victims too. And the majority of perpetrators, we know, are men. Domestic abuse and sexual violence affects all communities. It's across every part of the borough, all ethnic groups, all religions, across all age groups, and ability, disability, and sexual orientation. And of course, there's additional barriers around some of those groups reaching out for support, but the domestic abuse and sexual violence affects all communities. In terms of the specialist support available in Sandwell, the council has commissioned that specialist support for victims from Black Country Women's Aid for many years, and since during the recent period of grant to Women's Aid since April 2018, Women's Aid have supported almost 4,500 victims of domestic abuse and almost 500 victims of rape and sexual violence. And when victims exit from that service, they complete a survey in terms of the impact of the work, and 79% of victims reported that their situation has improved following that support. And that specialist support is really important for victims so that they can receive a trauma-informed response from an organisation who really understands the complex nature and the complex issues around domestic abuse and sexual violence which victims experience. And the support that we commission, any organisation can refer both male and female victims into Women's Aid for that support, or victims can refer themselves. So there's open access to that support. So the proposals in the Cabinet paper will sustain this really important provision over the next 3 years, which victims and families really need that offer. So it's really important that a Cabinet approves the recommendations today to extend that grant so that vital provision can continue. I hope that many of you will already have seen some of the campaigns that we've been putting out during, particularly during lockdown, and that this is one of the campaign posters that we've made available with the contact details of Black Country Women's Aid. And also there's this slide just gives some useful links to, for example, the council's website, which has a domestic abuse section on it, where there's a whole raft of information on domestic abuse and some really useful information. There's a link here to multi-agency domestic abuse and sexual violence training, which my team commissioned, and that training is available to officers from all partner organisations working with adults and children across Sandwell. There's a link to the website and the telephone number here for Black Country Women's Aid, and also an email address for my team, and just a contact details for Sandwell Mark in terms of where to make referrals for those high-risk cases. And that brings my presentation to an end. I'll just stop sharing my screen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mary Rose Lappin, for that. Do we have any questions, anyone? No? I think that is a vital support to people in Sandwell. I wish we didn't need it, but now we hugely do need it. Councillor Shaheen?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit on to that. I would like to say a huge thank you to Mary Rose Lappin and her team who've been doing this great considerable amount of work, which is greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen. I'll echo that. In that case, if we've got no questions, we will move on to the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll remember to turn my mic on this time. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain? Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Padda, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain?
For.
Carried. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, and that report is approved. We move on then to agenda item 12, delivering new homes, demolition of obsolete properties and acceptance of tender for the construction of new build council homes at Albion Road and Bull Lane, West Bromwich. Councillor Alcock to present the report, please.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. This report seeks approval to amend a previous decision to develop 2 council-owned sites off Albion Road and Bull Lane, West Bromwich. The Albion Road site was previously occupied by a block of 3 bungalows which were affected by serious subsidence that required the complete block to be demolished. At present, the site is disused wasteland following the site clearance. The development will provide 2 new 2-bedroom bungalows. The Bull Lane site is currently a vacant piece of land within a residential area which will provide 2 new 4-bedroom houses and 1 new 2-bedroom wheelchair compliant adapted bungalow for people with specific needs. The scheme went out to tender in November 2020 and the tenders returned were above the estimated budgets previously approved by Cabinet in 2019. Therefore, additional authority is required to increase the project budget as set out in the recommendations. The report also seeks to award the contract to construct the new build council homes to J. Harper and Sons. Details of the procurement exercise undertaken are also set out in the report. I will recommend that this report is approved in line with the recommendations given in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? I see that we're doing some more building of council properties. I approve that. If we move to the vote then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain? Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Padda, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain?
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Okay, and that report is approved. We move on to agenda item 13, new contract award for the provision of merchant acquiring services, and I'll move to Councillor Ali to present that report, please.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Just a bit of background. So the use of a merchant acquiring service allows Sandwell MBC to accept card payments for goods and services. Global Payments have been providing card payments, processing services for the council for nearly 22 years. The current contract expires in June 2020. The price to June 2021, that is. The price comparison of 3 major suppliers, Barclays, WorldPay, and Global Payments, was undertaken by the procurement partner, who is satisfied that the most competitive price provider is Global Payments. So the recommendations today are approval be given to award a contract to Global Payments for the provision of merchants acquiring services for the period of 1st of March 2021 to the 28th of February 2025. The cost of this service is partly variable and linked to the number of card transitions processed. Based on the current usage of 356,308 transitions processed, the annual cost is £214,033. But if the number of transitions processed increased by 5%, the cost will be £200,000 about £223,232. And if the number of the transitions process increased by 10%, the cost will be £333,862. And that the Director of Law and Governance be authorised to enter into an appropriate contract with Global Payments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? No? In that case, we'll move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Padda, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
That's carried, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to agenda item 14, the implementation of 2 borough-wide public space protection orders in relation to alcohol and dog fouling. Now that is me. So this report seeks approval for 2 borough-wide public space protection orders, PCSPOs, in relation to alcohol and dog fouling. The alcohol one enables authorised officers, constables, where satisfied that nuisance or disorder associated with alcohol is occurring, to require people not to consume alcohol in the area and to surrender any alcohol in their possession. It is an offence to fail to comply with these requirements without reasonable excuse. Dog fouling, making it an offence for a person in charge of a dog to fail to pick up the dog's feces forthwith should they defecate whilst in the registered disability assistance dogs and their users are however exempt from this requirement of this order. Both replacements to previous orders which were relatively well used within the last 3 years. As well as providing useful enforcement powers, they have both also provided additional engagement opportunities to improve behaviour and enable support to be offered where necessary. In line with procedure, a public consultation took place between November the 16th, 2020 and the 8th of January 2021, which highlighted that both issues remain areas of concern for residents, with 100% of responses supporting the dog fouling PSPO and 86% supporting the alcohol PSPO. Feedback has been taken into account, including the exempting registered disability dogs and ensuring staff enforcing the alcohol requirement understand dependency and can signpost and support individuals into appropriate services. Both PSPOs demonstrate the Council's commitment to listening to its residents, partners and communities, and to take action to address issues that are important to them. They are also both supported by Sandwell Multi-Agency Borough Tasking Group as they help combat crime and antisocial behaviour across the borough and support public health. Further to the Cabinet approval, they will be implemented for 3 years, each of which commencing on the 1st of March 2021. And with that, I'll move that report and take any questions. Have we got any questions? No, no hands going up, so we'll move to vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain.
For, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Padda, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Okay, and that report is approved. We move on to agenda item 15, West Midlands Collaborative Framework Contract for Works to Highway Structures. Can I ask Councillor Taylor to present that report, please?
Thank you, Councillor Crumpton. This report relates to a framework agreement contract for works to highway structures such as bridges, footbridges, subways, retaining walls, culverts, fences and safety barriers. The existing framework contract runs out actually on the 31st of March 2021. The new framework is led by Wolverhampton City Council in partnership with the other Black Country boroughs, Coventry and Solihull Council. The contractors on this framework are typically local, smaller or medium-sized contractors, and the framework approach will allow benefits through reduced tendering costs and contract administration. Sandwell would typically expect to spend £625,000 per year under this framework contract. Approval, Councillor Crumpton, is sought to participate in this new framework agreement from the 1st of April 2021. This would follow the necessary procurement processes and award of the contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Can we have any questions? Are there any questions, anyone? Any hands going up? So we will move to the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crumpton, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain. For. Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain. For. Councillor Padda, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
That's carried. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and that report is approved. We move on to agenda item 16, West Midlands Vision for Bus Approval to enter into an enhanced partnership. And I'll ask Councillor Taylor to present that report, please.
Thank you, Councillor Crumpton. The enhanced partnership will be the first of its kind in the country. It is a voluntary but legally binding agreement between the West Midlands Combined Authority as Transport Authority, local councils as highway authorities and bus operators. It provides a commitment from all partners to work together to improve bus services across the West Midlands in line with Vision for Bus. The report also highlights the first enhanced partnership scheme, which will run from Walsall through Great Barr and onto Birmingham and Solihull. Further enhanced partnership schemes will be required in the future as other projects progress, and each one will be subject to a separate cabinet approval process if it involves delivery in Sandwell. This will be the first of its kind in the country and demonstrates Sandwell's commitment to giving all residents, all of our citizens, the choice to use more sustainable modes of transport. I move the report, Councillor Crumpton, and ask for approval.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Have we got any questions on that report? No, no hands going up. In that case, we'll move to the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crumpton, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Padda, for, against or abstain.
For.
Shaheen, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
That's carried, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. That report is approved. We move on to agenda item 17, the A34 Sprint Bus Rapid Transit. And again, that's Councillor Taylor, please.
Thank you again, Councillor Crumpton. Just to give some history to this, Sprint is the name of the West Midlands Bus Rapid Transit Network, and it is a key element of the West Midlands Local Transport Plan and Vision for Bus. The first sprint route will run from Walsall through Great Bar and onto Birmingham and Solihull. The route will feature a combination of bus priority measures, high quality stops and dedicated multi-door vehicles. National Express will operate the service along the entire route. It will provide a high quality, reliable public transport service for Sandwell residents, particularly in the Great Bar area. This will allow better access for jobs and facilities in Walsall and Birmingham and around the airport and NEC in Solihull. It will also create a direct link to the HS2 station at Curzon Street and is part of the transport plan for the Commonwealth Games. The scheme will be delivered in 2 phases. Phase 1 is fully funded and will be completed before the Commonwealth Games, with Phase 2 being delivered as soon as funding is secured. I am now satisfied, Councillor Crompton, that the Phase 1 scheme addresses past concerns around the impact at the Scott Arms Junction and at Junction 7. We have also reached an agreement with Transport for West Midlands that the Phase 1 scheme will fund measures to control fly parking in the area around Scott Arms. Park and ride will be provided as part of Phase 2. Because West Midlands Combined Authority is not the Highway Authority, a legal agreement with Sandwell is required to enable Transport for West Midlands to carry out the sprint works on our highways. This report seeks approval to the Phase 1 scheme itself and to enter into the legal agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyler, and I know we have had much discussion on this, and so I'm pleased that we've got this far now with the report. Do we have any questions? No, I can't see any hands. In that case, we'll move to the vote, please.
Thank you. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain? For. Councillor Alcock, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Paddock, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain?
For.
That's carried. Thank you, Chair.
And that report is approved. We move on to agenda item 18, COVID Winter Grant Scheme. Can I ask Councillor Ali to present that report, please?
Thank you, Deputy Leader. The COVID Winter Grant Scheme is a government grant that enables local authorities to provide support to families with children and other vulnerable households with individuals from early December 2020 to the 31st of March 2021. The funding allocation to Sandwell is 1.4 million. The scheme was successfully launched in Sandwell in December, and a full briefing was provided to all members on the 3rd of December 2020. The planning for the scheme anticipated demand based on 65 successful applicants daily, with an average payment of £175 for the duration of the scheme. However, whilst the average payment has been within projection, the number of approved applications has been significantly outstripped the amount of funding available, and it is estimated that in order to continue to receive the applications until 31st of March, just over £1 million will be required. Based on Sandwell Council already has a supportive council tax reduction scheme in place for residents, there is currently an underspend of approximately £2 million on the council tax hardship grant fund, an additional budget provided by government to local authorities. This is a discretion within the grant to be used for related welfare purposes. It is proposed that the underspend is used to enable the winter support grant to continue to be offered until the 31st of March 2021. Therefore, it is recommended that Cabinet notes progress of the winter COVID grant scheme, note the demand for the scheme, and authorises the continuation of the scheme until the 31st of March 2021, and agrees the use of COVID council tax hardship fund grant becomes the cost of successful applicants through the winter grant COVID scheme until the 31st of March 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Ali. Have we got any questions? No? In that case, we'll move to vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crompton, for, against or abstain?
For.
Councillor Ali, for, against or abstain.
For.
Alcock, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Millard, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Paddock, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Shaheen, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Singh, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Taylor, for, against or abstain.
For.
Councillor Underhill, for, against or abstain.
For.
That's carried. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and that report is approved. We move on to agenda item 19, which is the Cabinet Petitions Committee. The minutes of the Cabinet Petitions Committee from the meeting held on the 20th of January are attached for information. Can we note the minutes, please? Cabinet members, can you respond?
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We now move on to agenda item 20, which is to the exclusion of the press and public. That the public and press be excluded from the rest of the meeting to avoid the possible disclosure of exempt information under Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended, relating to the financial and business affairs of any person, including the authority holding that information. Is this seconded? Councillor Ali, can you second that, please?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, is that agreed?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. In that case, the meeting will be adjourned while the live streaming is ceased.